We're going to be Photoshop coloring this black fender pieces to trade them to white because we don't have those pieces. So I've opened up my project in Photoshop, and there's a bunch of different ways to do this, but I'm going to first start off trying to isolate this black part, and actually as a benefit, being black might be easier to select. So let's try our little magic wand thing. So there's a bunch of different options here too. If I click on this, I'm using the quick selection tool. You can, I've never had success with the lasso tool or the, come on, click. Under it, why is this not popping up? All right, I'm not going to worry about it anyway. So I'm going to my quick selection tool. So this is automatically set up for plus, meaning that I'll just need to keep clicking on different areas and brush close to them. It also responds to the size of your brush that you've chosen. So that means that you see the little size there. If I use the bracket tool and bracket on the right bracket, I can make that a little bigger and pick bigger selections at once. And then you can also unselect parts too. So I'm going to do this to build most of what I need, and then I'm going to go in and do some little hand selecting. So right there is a mistake. So you can see if I zoom in and I hold down I'm going to go back smaller, hold down the Option key, and it plus turned into a minus, and I can run along here and minus. But I see that's pretty jaggedy, and I am super fanatical about this stuff. So I'm going to go down and go back to my lasso tool and hold down Shift, which adds to the selection. And I start drawing, and I have to start drawing, but now if I hold down Option, it gives me the rubber band. So I've got Shift and Option held. And I'm going to run across here. See how I get a nice big straight line. It's a little bit curved, so I'm going to do this in a couple chunks. 1, 2. And I'm just clicking and then dragging to draw, lift up, to get big selections. And now because this is adding to the selection, I have to draw within the selection to complete it and not jump out. Now it also depends on what scale of final format that you're trying to do this in, because these are going to be for relatively small images, so I can get away with a little bit less precision. So here I'm holding down the Option key. I've let go of the Shift and everything. I'm holding Option to unselect that little window there. This all looks pretty good. And let's get over here. There's another, and so this is actually, this little hole is the background color. So I'm going to unselect this just by hand. So I use a kind of a bunch of different tools. Notice there's also this kind of funny color shift. There's a little bit of a red on the bottom edge and a little bit of blue on the top edge, and that's typical of the optics of the camera you're using, depending on how good of a quality lens and camera and the megapixels that you're shooting at, and the fact that this is in the background, so it's a little bit out of focus, and so it's a softer edge in some of these areas where the color gets close to the background color. It's a little hard for it to select. So here, now I'll try going back to this tool. It's nice and black in here, so I'm going to hold down the negative and unselect that piece. And up here you see that I missed a little bit, so I'm going to hold down Shift and select that piece. And there's another little missed part here. Whoops, I'm doing the wrong way. So I accidentally selected all of that. Now I'm going to go back to negative and unselect this piece. For some reason, the negative seems to be more sensitive, so if I've selected too much, it's easy to go back and unselect. Once again, I was holding on the wrong key. So let's see what we can do here. That's pretty good. And then, again, a couple different ways to do this. In this case, I've got this piece selected. A lot of times, I'm going to do a couple things. First of all, I'm going to choose a black background, and I'm just going to delete it. Actually, wait, sorry, I'm going to choose a white background and delete it. So with the background color normal, everything's all good. And then this kind of shows me if I missed any big chunks. I'm going to undo this in a second, and I think that's probably good enough. So Command Z undoes that. But now I'm going to make a copy of it. Copy it, and I'm going to paste it, Command V without doing anything else. And that should give me an extra layer. Let's go up in Windows, Layers. So I can turn off the front layer, and I've got this on a second layer. A lot of times I'll actually take the background and drag this down to the little new page icon, and that makes a duplicate. And that way, if I screw up anything, I've always got a duplicate to go back to. Also, when you do this, the background is not locked, so I can get in there a little easier. You can unlock this by just double-clicking on it. Okay, that's my shortcut, but let me go back to my layer. So now, if I just use my Hue Saturation, Command U, I could actually start playing around. You see the color of the lights are changing and stuff, but and it's only affecting that layer because I'm in that layer. It's really easy to get on the wrong layer in Photoshop and something's not happening correctly and you're wondering why. So so our next step is, now I'm in that second layer. I want to isolate those headlights because those are a different color. So this might be an easy grab. Yeah, so that, and then this one, and then also the background lights. And I'm not sure about this bar here. I'm going to leave that and see. I might have to go back and select this little bit of red here to fix that. Here I'm going back in, it didn't quite get all what I wanted, so I'm going to clean that up a little bit. All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy those, copy, paste, and those are in their own separate layers. So now we decided that the front lights are going to be the same blue over here, so I'm going to select those, and I could try using, again, Hue Saturation, Command U, and changing the hue to get close to the blue. It should be over past the green. And I'll test this first. That's actually not too bad. See this little kind of halo around here, but we'll fix that in a minute. The other thing we could do is colorize it, in which case I need to, this will give it a more solid tone if it wasn't all the same color to begin with. So in this case, I'm going to push up the saturation, and then again, I'm going to find that blue, which is just after green, about in there. And then I'm going to turn the lightness up a little bit. And there, now I've got blue headlights, just like the headlights on the other car. Now I'm going to go back down one layer, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, but I want to get it to look like it's white like the rest of this car over here. So I'm going to select that and go Command. We'll start with levels. Let's see what that does. So levels has a couple different things. This bar in the middle, this little mountainous graph, shows you kind of where this is the dark end, and if I move this down, it will, there's a gap in there, and that means that the black doesn't go all the way to total black. It goes to like a 90% black, and then that's it. So if I wanted more black, I would go this way, but we want the other way around. So I'm going to push this slider more over this way, and same with the white slider. Problem with this is I might blow out my highlights. You can see this doesn't really look like that, so this is probably not the best tool. Next try, and a lot of these times it's just you got to try a bunch of different tools to see which one gives you the best effects. So this one's called Shadows and Highlights under Adjustments. And what I want to do is I want to reduce the shadows, and I don't see, oh, there it goes. And also the highlights. So this problem, this is a tricky thing because the this part is really shiny black, and this is kind of a matte white. So we've got to get rid of some of these kind of overblown highlights and shadow effects, and we want this to be a little flatter than it is. So let me try that to start with. And then the other thing I noticed is that there's some color shifting going on in here too, where it's picking up some blue from outside and some yellow lights. And so I'm going to do Hue Saturation on this, which is Command U again. In this case, I'm going to try colorizing this. So I clicked on this little Colorize button, and you can see that it's got an even tone of red, kind of a light red, and if I turn that up, it would be brighter. Of course, we don't want color. A lot of times for white, there's just a hint of blue in it, so before I turn that down, I'm going to find blue, because it's hard to find the color once you've turned the saturation down. So I'm going to turn the saturation way down just a little bit, and then I'm going to turn the lightness up and see if we can get a little closer. Now you can see it's getting closer. It looks a little artificial. I might have to go back in there and do some manual shading and stuff. Maybe I went just a tad too light. Maybe I shouldn't have done that shadows and highlights just yet, but let's try this again. Go up a little more. See, it still has this kind of metallic-y feel to it, which this doesn't, and it's a lot of it's based off of these the contrast ratio from these darks to the lights, where this is a little bit more even toned. So this is going to be a little bit of manual work, I think. So I'm going to stop there for a second. I'm going to try sampling this gray color. And again, since this is all selected or isolated, sorry, let's turn that off too. Notice I just turned the lights off, and the new lights are on top of that layer, so they're still colored, but since I desaturated this level, there's they look like they're almost black. So let's see if I can do, I've got this color selected. I'm going to edit fill, and this is important. I want to make sure to preserve the transparency in the background. So I'm going to choose that color that we just chose, except for I want the foreground color. And let's try it just lighten only. So we're going to try to get rid of some of these dark areas. And usually I do like 30% to start with, just to try it. Nope. I'll try that again. Adjustments. What was I just doing? I forget. Oh, I was going to fill. Right. Edit. Fill. Let's try just normal for a minute. 30%. You see it's kind of flattening it out a little bit more. The problem is I'm really losing shadows that should be up inside there. But let's see, what else can I do here? Push this up. Here's where I might do some selective areas. This is a very harsh reflection. It's not a shadow, but it's a reflection. So I'm going to take this whole piece, and I'm just kind of doing a quick selection. And notice again, once I get past the object, I can go out of the field. I don't have to select this edge because it's already cut off. So I just want to get rid of that there. And maybe let's do a manual paint job. So I'm going to use my Option key to select that color. And then I'm going to pick my brush, and here I want a big airbrush. So I like this 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one over. I want the size to be pretty big. And if you have the caps lock on, it shows you this precision cursor, which you can't really see the size. So if you turn the cap locks off, you can see the size of the brush. And once again, the right bracket will enlarge your brush, and the left bracket will shrink it. So I've got my opacity at 100. This is where I want to just lighten. And so let's get this a little bit bigger still. And you see I just completely wiped that out, but I didn't change the color here, but that's a little too harsh. So I'm going to turn my opacity down to like 50% and kind of just see if I can lighten that up a little bit. And maybe just a smidge more. Oops. And you got some little funny edge in there. There, I just missed it. So maybe I'll turn my airbrush way down. I'm going to select this color here, and I'm going to say lighten only, so it should lighten up that edge because that looks a little artificial. Again, when you're doing these things where you're bending reality, not just changing color but changing matte texture and stuff, gets a little bit more tricky. So here's again this Fender's got this highlight running along here, and let's see if we can do the opposite. So I sampled this color. Instead of lightening only, I'm going to darken, which is up there. And I'm going to increase again and see if I can just kind of tone down that. And there's one other thing I can do over here in this layers palette. If I hit this lock up here, I'm over in this corner, that will lock the transparency so I can't paint outside of those edges. So I want to just tone this down. I don't want to completely eliminate it because there are some, shading. Let's tone this down. We're darkening. Let's go back to lighten. I'm going to select maybe this color and lighten that up a little bit. And this is also a little hard to do without any context, so if I turn this back on, I might be able to kind of compare the two. Here again, there's a big highlight, and you notice on this car there's shading, but there's really no highlights per se. The highlights are just gradual lightening and darkening. So that's a little too bright for what this is. So sample some color around, and in this case we're going to darken again, and got my opacity down, and I don't want to completely eliminate it, but I want to tone it down. And over here there's a highlight, tone it down. See how it's looking a little more matte already? Over there. I don't have to worry about the headlights, remember, because that's a whole separate layer. And let's see, let's get this color, tone that down. This one's not too bad. Darken, yeah, so. And you see this kind of halo effect around my selection. I'm not going to worry about that yet because I'm going to deal with the background separately. Getting closer. Take away this color. Darken. Nice thing about these darken and lightens, notice that I can darken this edge up without affecting this because it's actually darker. And then now I want to do something. This is just for the sake of making this look a little bit more realistic. I'm going to select just the underside of this, which is this edge, and again using my holding down shift and option at the same time. So I've got this selected, and now instead of using my brush and the colors, I'm going to use this tool, which is the little fist looking thing. If I click on that, I've got dodge, burn, and sponge, and burn will make things darker, and dodge will make them lighter. And so I want to actually make them darker so the hand is good. And again, I'm going to get a bigger brush. And I've selected this area because I don't want it to spill over. I just want a shadow underneath here. Just give that a little bit more separation and make it look like, since everything's the same color, it's kind of looking washed out. It's not looking white, but if I do these kind of darker areas in a darker shade, it helps to balance out the tone of the whole thing and make you realize, or think, give you the illusion that this is actually white and this is the underside, which is all dark. And again, this, I'm not sure what's going on here. Oh, that's the tail light, so we've got that on a separate layer anyway, so I'm gonna just, and this is a little bit out of focus, so I probably should have been doing my selections with a little bit of a feathered radius, but too late now. So I'm going to go along this whole edge. Oh, a little too high. Yeep, yeep. Go back and unselect this, and unfortunately you can't do the rubber band thing in negative. I don't know if that makes sense, but now I'm going to hold down Shift. So I kind of unselected more than I needed. Hold on Shift and Option. Actually, sorry, Shift first, start drawing. Now Option to rubber band, and now I'm going to go across here and get a nice straight line. Add that to the selection. Go back to my little burn tool, and again, this is on a separate layer. It's isolated and the background's locked, so I can just paint across all this stuff. And I'm building this up slowly. Anything you do, you should just kind of take it in small steps so that you don't, if you do it in one chunk, it becomes really obvious it's a brush stroke. And see how that's starting to kind of give it the illusion that this is a white piece. Because if you look at this, you know, like let's see, you know, where's some dark areas on the white, like here, you know, that gets pretty dark. So what else? It could be enough, but let's just do this a little bit more. The last thing is the, this is really smooth, but because this was darker and we've lightened it up, we've got this kind of mottled, speckly look, which is not so good. And it's only in the darkest areas, and that's kind of typical. So what I want to do is see if I can soften that up a little bit. And so I might go into my filters, noise. There's a bunch of different options. I'm going to try reduce noise. And this should give me a dialog box with some options. And I'll kind of isolate what's the worst area, maybe this front fender. So if I click on this, it goes back to original, let go, and it kind of shows you what your new thing is. And let's zoom in one more level so we can see, like, see how right here it's kind of changing from fuzzy to softer, but it's not quite soft enough. So I want my strength, preserve details. I'm going to turn my details down a little bit. Color noise, we'll get rid of that. Don't need to sharpen details. We do want to remove the JPEG artifacts pretty much always. And see how it's already looking a little better? Let's scoot over to the other fender and see. It's like taking the acne off the car. And I might go in and do some manual selecting too. So let's turn the, like this whole portion around the headlight looks like a little too, if this is a matte color, I think those are all the reflections, but they're pretty odd reflections. So again, I'm going to go in here manually. And again, this is a hole that's already cut through, so I actually don't have to worry about that. And the headlight, I don't have to worry about because I can paint over that because I've got the other layer with the headlight on there. And so maybe I'm just going to try painting over this. So let's try selecting again this kind of medium color. And we are going to lighten this time. I'm trying to get rid of some of this dark swashes. And same over here. And maybe maybe let's try some of this here. Yeah, that's good. Didn't like that little piece. And then I get way down into this and I might need just some straight up artwork. So now this is a nice gray tone, but this has got a lighter white. So I'm just going to try airbrushing some of this color, kind of just right across the hump. And same with this one. A little too much. And again, might turn this down and build it up in smaller increments. This actually looks pretty cool over there, but oh, I'm in lighten. Oh, that's fine. I'll lighten this up. And same here. So this just takes some patience and effort. Maybe over, oops, don't want that. Right along the ridge of the door. And obviously the best retouching job, you shouldn't even notice that somebody had messed with it. It's okay. All right, so I'm going to take my background, and because I want to turn this video off, so I do the same thing to this whole hood piece and change the window too. I'm going to take the background, which I haven't done anything to, and I'm going to make one more copy, just because I'm going to really screw this one up. I'm not even going to worry about this car. I just want to show you what I'll do for the background. So forget the car. Again, we've got the new layer with your part on it, so I don't have to worry about that because I'm not in that layer. And I'm just messing with this background. So since the parts are all on their own layers, I can just adjust the background layer. So I'm going to go Command L. And here's where I'm going to use my little eyedropper tool. I'm going to select kind of a lighter area, but maybe not the lightest like I see over here. I'm going to show you what happens. Let's push this slider this way. So we're just looking at the background, really. We can see that there's color in all of this. You can kind of see it shifting as it goes under the car and everything, and you start to see where the lightest and darkest areas are. So I'm going to let go of that. I'm going to go back here and select this little eyedropper tool, which is the one on the right. That will set anything you click on to actual white. So if I start clicking around here, you can see it jump kind of dramatically, and I'm kind of scoping around where's the best place to kind of, I don't want to lose my shadows, so I'm kind of clicking around to see what the best place is. And I'm not adding to it, I'm just changing the selection each time I click without locking it down. I think I see a little bit of yellow in here, so I think really what I want is something like that. The next step is to close that. So that accepts it, and I'm going to go right back and go Command Levels. Now I'm going to slide this way down, and you'll see that over here it's pure white, and I can get rid of that easily, but it shifts down into color again, so I'm going to cancel that. So the rest of this I might just airbrush some white in there, because I really want this shadow interaction to be proper. But the next step I'm going to do is Command U, which is Hue Saturation, and this shadow has some yellow cast, some red cast. So normally I just turn the hue saturation all the way down to nothing, and you see all this stuff around it went to black and white. But if there's some areas where you need a little bit of color, you might just turn it way down, but not totally off. And that's by pushing it to the left. So let's start with that. And then I'm looking at this and I'm looking at that, and this still looks kind of gray. So I'm going to go back now into my upper layer, which is the hood. I'm going to go back to levels again. And now I'm going to kind of push the highlight levels up a little bit more, so it gets to a little bit more whiter. And I notice now I've got this kind of blue cast that I don't necessarily want. And so I'm going to go back to my Hue Saturation, which is Command U, and I'm going to turn my saturation down a little bit more. Let's see if I can get closer. I don't want to go totally off because you see it gets a little artificial looking. So I want a little bit of that color, but definitely less. And somewhere in there. So I was hoping these edges would look a little cleaner once we did all this, but I still see this kind of halo effect around here. And is that, that's because this, the black is showing through basically, because it doesn't, if I turn these off, the white actually looks pretty good, right? So let's see if we can get rid of some of that black underneath this. And I'm going to cheat this a little bit by using my brush, and I'll pick this background color, which is basically white. It should be white, but maybe not down where the shadows are. And I'm going to use my lighten brush. I could just airbrush it out, but let's see if this works. Opacity 33, turn that up a little bit. And oops, make sure I'm in that background layer. And so notice when I'm painting around here, look down here on this bottom edge, and I just want to get just the edge because I don't want to ruin the shadows. But see how it's kind of all of a sudden blending in now with the background, because that basically painting out the black. Now if I turn this off, you'll see what I just did. I'm getting rid of this just little tiny edge, so it's not poking through underneath there. I could probably do this like this. Again, I want to be careful when I get down to the shadow areas. I don't want to lose any of these shadows. So paint across there, go back, look at this, and now I'm going to get a little closer. And I could spend typically 2 to 4 hours on one of these images, just making sure, because this is what sells our product online. And so it is some people's only introduction to our product, so it better look good. So, okay, so now you can kind of see how that looks much better. And we're getting close to the illusion that this is white. There's a bunch of, whoops, see, there's a place where I'm going to have some difficulties, right? But instead of going to white, here's where I'm going to sample the shadow color. And now I'm painting, I'm lightening only, so it's not lightening my shadows. And I'm painting along that edge to get it closer to, and here, I'm lightening it. You see it's not going totally away, but it's a little edge in there. It's actually okay. Here, I'm going to selectively go in and say, all right, this area here, I can do pure white. And so I'm going to come across here, and now it gets onto the shadow areas, so I might want to shift. You can see the white in there. So I am going to, I'm going to pick this color, the shadow color now, and use that to lighten the rest. Going around and constantly, oh, and by the way, I'm holding down Option and click. When I hold down Option, I get the eyedropper, and then click, and I select the color where I just clicked. Now I'm going to paint around here. And here's another whole area. If you get a little halo around here, it starts looking artificial. Oops. So especially where it touches, you want to make sure that you get the object grounded. But also those little kind of jaggedy selections, the selection tool doesn't do a perfect job. So where it gets that little jaggediness, as soon as you get rid of that jaggediness, it looks a lot better. Along this whole edge. I like to make lots of sound effects as I go along. So you can see this is not trivial, but worth the effort. And you can see these headlights now that I'm zoomed in look pretty bad. So I might actually just go hand paint a little edge around that just to clean that up. Really what I should, if you're going to get, you know, perfection about this, let's do this. So I'll do these headlights again. So I'm going to turn off that layer, and I'm going to go turn off this layer and go back to one of my original layers, which is here. Instead of trying to do a quick selection, I'm going to use the pen tool, and that is here. And this gives you kind of an Illustrator-like pen, and if I click and drag, I can make a very precision selection. So I'm clicking, and I can go back and adjust this after I finish. So sometimes I just want to get something down, like that's too big. If it bothers me, I can hold down Option, the Command key, and push these back even while I haven't finished drawing yet. And actually, I know this is a little bit more like this. Move these up. And yeah, that's terrible, but I'll fix that. And see, this one I'm making a big long selection, so I know when I click this point it's going to make some big loop. So I already going to hold down Command, push this back, and then I'll click on this, and again it's made a big loop, but not too bad. Okay, now I got that all done, and I'm going to go back and get my arrow tool and make this selection a little bit cleaner just by moving these points around. So if you've used Illustrator ever, this is a lot more familiar territory. If you haven't, you should learn how to use these Bezier tools, because they're very handy for making good, clean selections, and you'll see in a second here. All right, so let's say I like that. The other nice thing about these kind of selections is they are down here in paths in your path palette, which you can get over here in Windows, and you scroll down the paths, and there it is if you don't see it. So I've just made this work path, and I'm going to name it light. And now this will stay there. I can click off, it goes away. If I click on it, it comes back, and then I can click this little selection tool, or I can click over here and say make selection. And in this case, no feather radius, but yes, anti-alias, and this is a new selection. So I've selected this, and I want to be in the right layer though, which is way down here. So I'm going to copy that, and now I'll go back up to top level, paste, Command V, and now I've got a new headlight, which is in the top layer. I'm going to turn this off, and you see that selection is way better than that selection. And so let's colorize this, and you can see all this color shifting and stuff here. This is why it's sometimes good to just go Command U, colorize. So turn up the saturation, get your color right first. Saturation, you don't want it too overly, well, maybe we do. Lighten it up a little bit. And now I'm going to put this on top of that. And that, to me, looks better than that. Although I think I lightened it up a little too much. But it's on its own layer. Let me get rid of that one. See that fuzzy edge? And now the clean edge. Fuzzy, clean. So this is our good layer, but I think I need to play with the contrast a little bit more. So I'm going to lighten and darken at the same time. So I'm sliding the sliders closer together. And that looks a little better. And we'll turn the background layer back on. So, oops, not that one. Which one did we clean up? This one. So, still looks a little too metallic-y to me, but I think that might be good enough. And then white stuff is kind of hard because the background's white, so you want to leave a little bit of color there. I might lighten up a little bit on the fenders and stuff. And I haven't even dealt with this car yet, so by the time I get there, I might lighten this up a bit by see here, you can see where I'm losing information. So you want to kind of selectively do this, and it might be lightening more in the center section, but again, I don't want to wash it out, so I have to be careful. I want some detail here. All right, I'm going to stop for now and finish this up offline, but this is kind of most of the techniques I would use to color correct and clean up a photograph. Oh, and last one thing here. Let's do this real quick. I'll make sure I'm in the right layer, which is this one. And I got this little eyelash here, and that is kind of bothersome, so I'm going to use my patch tool, or this Band-Aid tool. And this is kind of cool because I can just, I'm going to bracket up to get a bigger brush. Just brush over this, and it will sample the colors around and kind of figure out what you want. Look at that, I got rid of it. And when I'm all done, I'll just kind of scope around and make sure that there's no other little dirt, dust, speckles, and then just use the same tool. Quick brush over them. There's one right there. And notice it works in the dark areas, it works in the light areas. And so I'll do a quick pass to get rid of dust and debris. And you notice here I see more because this area is in the focal range, and so it's picking up a lot more of these little dust things, and I don't have to do them, carefully. I can just, and it might take several passes. Here's a kind of a weird spot right here. I'm not sure if this is going to do anything, but oh yeah, it did. Yay! And then also on the car. Now it's easy though to, like, for example here, there's a little dust speckle, got rid of that. But here's one right next to the screw. If I go into an area where there's contrast, a lot of times it will not know exactly what you want to do with the edge. So I want to kind of isolate, and I might even, if I was really close to some area where I didn't want, well, let's just do it here. I might make a selection around this first, and then use this in there so that I isolate the two, and that won't mess up the area where I didn't select. It's a little weird, it samples areas around it, so sometimes also if I do this, it might pick up a little of this color and put it in there. So again, you just have to kind of try. Let's see on the color. Oh, here, like on the windshield, there's all kinds of the opposite. They're white spots, right? So just do these, isolate them, get them one by one, and this is going to look so much better. Here's a big one. This might not work. Now this is actually a little bit of a reflection, so I'm going to leave that there. And then this is a reflection too, but it's a little bit chunky, so let's see what happens if I do that. Yeah, I think they hand painted this window, so that's why it looks kind of mottled. So here's where I would kind of just give the illusion of reflectedness. So this, in this case, I'm gonna give myself a 1, so this doesn't look so sharp, a 1 feather radius, and I'm gonna click and just grab a couple points on here. This window is pretty flat, so I can make a big selection across here and run up this way. And I'm not going to go all the way into this area, so I don't really have to worry about the far end. I want to do a, let's try this tool. Let's see if this works. So the one with the hand pinching was darken, and so let's go to dodge, which looks like a lollipop. And I'm going to get a big old brush and do a couple passes on this. Yeah, I don't like that. So it's pulling out the grain too much. I'm going to do this with a white airbrush instead. So I need my brush, and I've got some preset brushes, but it's a big airbrush that we chose earlier. I could use this and scale up the size to pretty huge, even bigger than that. And I want my color to be white. And I just want like a little highlight. I'm going to turn the opacity way down and just get the top a little bit more. And I can hide the little marching ants. I think by Command H, yeah. And so that, what that does is just gives this little reflection on the window. Notice I didn't go all the way to the top because usually there's a little bit of, as the rotates, the window has a little radius on the top. And I didn't even go all the way to the edge, but it just gives a little more life into it. It's almost like the highlights in somebody's eyes. Gives a little sparkle. Yeah, let's stop. So thanks for watching.